The next top story, it's time to build a new grid. This is from Max Webster, September 11th. 8 comments, 10K boost, baby. 12,100 sats. Keyan, what's this?
Yeah, so this is a post from Max that is about solar. Max is a huge solar bull. Has been working in or started a startup career working as one of the first employees of a solar company in Mexico, and I think has stayed a solar bull since then. He cites a number of developments here about the way that solar is becoming cheaper, the storage for solar is becoming cheaper, how we're seeing countries like China really expand their solar generation. And he also pairs that with a lot of the discussion around the need for additional electricity for all of these AI data center stuff that people are doing. Like, no one really wanted to talk about this kind of stuff when it was for Bitcoin or altcoin mining. But now that it has it's kind of like sanctioned by Silicon Valley, there's a lot more discussion about data center energy needs and the fact that producing more energy is good.
It's funny how that changed, right?
It changed so fast.
It's so messed up, but I love it though.
So fast. So it's nice as we basically have, at least on the energy side, we have Silicon Valley on our side now. So there'll never be like that green skull thing,
Yeah, because they were
Bitcoin is
full on
dirty,
the other
whatever.
side. They were
Yeah.
full on the other side, and now all of a sudden AI, and I mean, it's crazy how that changed.
I wonder if those proof of stake chains even would have emerged if like the AI boom had coincided with like the cycle when they started working on that stuff. Like,
What do you mean? Like,
because
what do you
like the
mean?
proof of stake, like they switched, a lot of these chains switched over to proof of stake because of all the energy FUD.
Oh yeah, yeah, that they did, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
I wonder if they probably wouldn't have done that. It probably wouldn't even occur to them that's a big deal. They probably would have respected the fact that
Mm,
it's quite expensive and
yeah,
energy intensive to
yeah,
maintain their chains. Anyway, yeah, so he writes about solar, the emergence of solar, like how solar is like growing and incredibly cost effective and is getting deployed in, especially in China, at huge volumes. And he shares some cool graphs. Like, some of the data in here is pretty crazy. Like, I think for every doubling of solar deployed, it reduces the cost of all future solar deployments by like 40%, I think. And so you can just see how like the feedback loop is very positive. And then he also describes there's a similar trend for solar energy storage with lithium ion batteries, where I think every doubling of solar energy storage that gets deployed, you get like a 20 to 30% reduction in like future deployment costs. So you have these trends that are showing that it's going to get pretty cheap to produce solar energy, and you have lots of demand for
yeah.
solar energy. And so he writes a bit about that, and then that kind of dovetails into ideas about more decentralized grids and how we might see kind of solar take over a grid or become more dominant on a grid. And he has a few ideas about how that might happen, but primarily he sees more like off-grid data centers coming online that are primarily powered by solar and not connected to the grid at all, and so don't really have many requirements in that regard, and getting deployed in places like Texas or
Yeah.
other places in the South where they don't have a lot of regulations around off-grid power. And then eventually they end up connecting into the grid and then kind of competing
Yeah.
in a way that they win with other energy sources on the grid. Um, and yeah, he kind of lays out his like the way he thinks it comes together over time. And I think it's pretty compelling. Like, I said in the comments that I've been kind of hesitant to be a solar bull. I've always liked the idea of solar, but I've always been kind of hesitant because I don't know what the end-to-end costs of solar are, or something like wind, because no one really talks about them because it's all like this is green energy. It's good. We don't need to talk about anything, but the fact that it's good. And that kind of puts me off as a person who is kind of skeptical of the things people say. And so but this makes a pretty compelling case. He doesn't get into end-to-end costs, but he does get into why it's good. And why it's good, not just for, the environment, but also good for freedom. People can generate their own energy, and good for people who like to consume energy because it's cheaper. I'm still not certain what the end-to-end costs are, especially of like batteries, producing lots and lots of batteries. Are those how environmentally good is that relative to pumping a well? I don't know. But
yeah, I think short term, I mean, just from the only experience I have with all the mining stuff and solar stuff is just from working with Kardashev for a year, when they were in our accelerator, and all the alpha that they would give me about what was going on in Mexico and Latin America. And I think he hit it right on the nail when he talked about the off grid stuff. That's exactly what's happening in Mexico and Latin America. There's just so much underutilized energy that's just not being tapped into, and potential deals just there. It's just somebody putting some capital to work. Really, it's all that's standing in the way of that. The other thing, I think long term, I think we got to go to the stars. I mean, I think Elon's going to do it. I think Bezos is going to do it. And I think any other startup that's thinking about doing it off Earth, I think you look at any sci-fi book, everybody talks about that. I think me and Ted always talk about that. That's where we're going to get most of the energy that we need to do the things eventually. And I think that's where hopefully we see that I want to see that at least once in my lifetime. But I do think there's a lot of off-grid stuff, but I do think if you're thinking long-term, I think off Earth is where most of the energy is going to have to come from.
You're going to put like a solar.
I'm not the guy. I don't know how to do that, but I wouldn't dare. I'm not the space kind of guy.
Just wondering how we're going to import energy back.
I don't know. Somebody needs to figure it out.
Here
you go. We got Ted.
Our atmosphere.
Ted, how do we do it, Ted?
Probably don't.
Oh, hang on. Let me make sure I got the right one.
Okay.
Go for it.
You probably don't, to be honest, just because you've got whatever the diffraction index or whatever the right number is for the atmosphere. It's very difficult to beam energy through the atmosphere. It diffuses very quickly. So I think refract.
So how do we get enough energy from like the moon or from a traveling asteroid or the Luma or whatever?
Well, the sun's got a lot of energy, and if you're in space, you get more of it because you're not blocked by the atmosphere. However, the atmosphere does filter out a lot of the harmful bandwidths that you might not normally that might not help you generate some more solar in space. And also, the place we'd be going is likely away from the sun, so we're actually like getting less sunlight. But in terms of like net energy and resources, obviously it's infinite in space and finite on Earth. So that I agree with you, Car, that like that's the destination. I would say my personal ethos is that like humans are kind of like a fire or a locust swarm that we just go out and consume and eat everything. So I love solar and wind and all this other stuff. I don't think that sustainability is like a valid or like, I don't think it's possible, feasible. Like, I don't see any sort of logical reason why that would ever be achieved. But I mean, maybe no one can know how, life kind of evolves in the future. But I think in the end, we're just going to go out and eat every possible energy source we can find.
I think so too. Yeah.
And that's a good thing because we like life, and it's going to maybe cause the demise of the universe faster, but it's not really demise because we're experiencing it, right? And so we give things value. They don't have intrinsic value before we observe them, so we might as well go observe the shit out of everything as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I think it'll be a long time before we consume all the energy in the universe, but yeah.
It's just like anything, like with anything that has enough throughput, you add another. It's like the freeway, the whole thing they say about freeways, like if you add another lane, it's just going to lead to more traffic.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just that kind of thought.
What is the rule?
There's a rule to it.
I forget that dude's name. Do you know the name of the rule? I feel like you would be the kind of person.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, there's like Javon's paradox, I think, is what it is.
Mm.
Yeah, where it's like the cheaper you make something, the more demand increases. So it's like or the more efficient something becomes, the more people
Yeah.
use it, rather than like you get the same usage with a higher level of efficiency, so you have like reduced consumption and like reduced waste. You end up kind of just increasing people's usage of it sort of proportionally. So you end up with the same waste levels, but it's like serving more people.
That's why I think off Earth makes the most sense. It like I don't know how that's to be achieved, but it's in every sci-fi book.
I just don't know if it serves Earthlings if we're getting energy from outside the atmosphere.
Yeah, so there's a really good argument I heard by this guy Isaac Arthur on YouTube, and he's a really good. He's basically would be a sci-fi author, but he just does everything in YouTube format. And he made a really good pitch about industrializing the moon, which is what is the number one economic benefit the moon has. And it's like they don't really have anything if you think about it, but the one thing they do have is a very advantageous energy position to get things in low Earth orbit. So we know how valuable low Earth orbit is. Spy satellites, Starlink, GPS, imaging, kind of the basics. It's a lot cheaper energetically to drop something
Interesting.
into that position from the moon
Yeah.
or from just a Lagrange point in space than it is to
Yeah.
launch it from Earth.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
So that's true for anything kind of, as you go further out the solar system, once you kind of get to the asteroid belt and pushing beyond that, well, then like
Yeah.
Jupiter's got its own gravity well. So, and it's, multiple years to get there. So it's probably unlikely that it's going to benefit Earth that much. But I think it sort of intra solar, I'm sure there'll be stuff we discover, scooping up some helium on Jupiter, getting some hydrocarbons on Titan, getting some water on
Yeah.
Ceres, and like that
Yeah.
would benefit Earth
Yeah.
too.
Just running errands.
We just need to
through the
start. We
solar
just need to
system.
start doing it.
Cool.
Yeah. Good post. Good
Thank you,
thinking.
Ted.
Thanks, Ted.
Space Ted.
Yeah, Ted will be at Startup Day, I should mention. So he's the guy to talk to about space stuff. And he's also building an AI app.
Ask him questions about space.